Flosstube, welcome to Creative Bloom Studio. Today it's all about Punchneedle. I had several people ask me how to transfer the paper pattern onto the weaver's cloth, so I will be doing a demo on that. And I'm going to do more videos like this where I just break down some of the complications, maybe, I guess you could say, that people might run into. So this is first of a few videos that I plan on doing. I want to do a finishing video. I want to experiment with using different flosses at different heights and do some dimensional pieces. That will be down the road. It might even be 2020 before I get to that. But today it's just all about Punchneedle. I'm going to do a demo and then I'm going to do questions and answers. I had a lot of people asking questions and I filmed it actually on my last Flosstube, but part of it didn't take. And I thought I'm just going to do a whole separate video just for people that like Punchneedle. So let's get started. First, I want to start out by saying that my patterns come with a 13 by 15 piece of weaver's cloth. I've noticed that recently when people order my patterns, they're also ordering a piece of weaver's cloth. So I don't know if they're ordering that for an extra piece so that they can punch it more than once, or if they need a piece for maybe another punch needle they purchased from a different designer that doesn't include the cloth. So I just go ahead and send them. But I have a feeling it's possible that they think it doesn't come with the weaver's cloth. So here's one of my patterns. This is the pattern I'm going to trace onto the weaver's cloth for you. But as you can see, it comes with a nice big piece of weaver's cloth. Okay? It's a 13 by 15. So it's rather large, and this design, the snowman design, PN005, is great for beginners. And the finished size is only 3 by 2.75 inches. So if you are using the stretcher bars like I do, or I mean even in a hoop or the gripper frame, whatever you use to hold your weaver's cloth as you punch, you could trace it here, do it again here. I mean, you could probably get 6 to 8. If you wanted to do these for ornaments as gifts or something, you could probably get at least 6 different snowmen on here. So, what else did I want to show you? Okay. I'm going to flip the camera so that it's an overhead view and you can see down. I want to show you how to put together the stretcher bars if that's the route that you're taking. So let's do that. Okay, so the stretcher bars that I use, they're called Masterpiece. You can get them on Amazon, and when you get them, they're in pieces. So when you order, like I'm putting together a 12 by 16. So when you order 12 inches, you're going to get 2 pieces. And when you order 16 inches, you're going to get 2 pieces. And then you have to put them together. So I wanted to show you how to do that. As you can see, it's like tongue and groove. There's only one way it's going to go together. You slip that into there, and then you just rock it back and forth until it's in. So I went ahead and did a little bit ahead of time so that you didn't have to sit through all of it. It's not really that hard to do, but if you have weak hands or arthritis or something, you might be able to get your husband or someone to do that for you. The hardest one to get together is the last one because you don't have the mobility to rock it back and forth quite as much. So what you could do, let me grab a little hammer. So as you can see, I have a little gap there, and it's really hard to put together. So I'm just going to tap it with my hammer that way. Tap it with my hammer that way. And I just keep tapping it until it fits together. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not, you're not actually stretching canvas on it. I mean, that's what these are originally made for. So if you were going to stretch canvas, you'd want to make sure it was perfect. But for our purposes, it's fine if it's not perfectly lined up and square. Okay, so now I'm going to use a heavy-duty staple gun. And most people have these. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm just stapling it so that I'm getting the staple in both stretcher bars. And then you want to do that in all 4 corners. And it wouldn't hurt also to flip it over and do all 4 corners. And I want to explain why I like using the stretcher bars instead of the gripper frames or a hoop. This is a very economical way to have several punch needle projects going at the same time. If you do small projects, using a gripper frame would probably be fine. But I'm doing larger projects these days, and I don't want to have to remove it from my hoop or remove it from my gripper frame. I want to staple it on here and never have to move it until I'm complete with the project and I can take it off and iron it. If you're doing, like for instance, the small little snowman I'm doing, that's perfectly fine to use a hoop or those gripper frames. So I mean, you could have a variety. You could use the stretcher bars like I'm using for your large projects, and then use a hoop or get a gripper frame for your smaller projects. I know this is super loud, guys, so sorry. Okay, so I have stapled both sides. It is secure. It is not going anywhere. Now, just want to make sure that was going to fit because it's a bigger size. I usually work with 11 by 14, but I thought, you know what? Why not use 12 by 16 so that if I do even a bigger design, it's going to work. In order to trace your image onto your weaver's cloth, you can use a window. And I'm not going to show you how to use the window because y'all, I know you're smart enough to figure that out. If you have some tape and you have a window and it's daylight out, you can use that, save yourself money. The only problem is you have to stand and do it. And you know, if you're tracing a lot, your arms can get tired, whatever. But I've done it that way several times when I couldn't find my light box. Now, for the 15 years I've been doing punch needle, for the past 14 years, I used a light box. They're cumbersome, and the one I had, it made this humming sound that used to drive me crazy, and if my husband was sitting on the couch while I was doing it, he's like, that thing is so annoying. So guess what he got me for Christmas last year? He got me an LED light. I don't know what you'd call it. It's not a box. It's super thin. Can you see how thin it is? It's LED. You plug it in with a USB cord. The only thing I don't like about it is this part. Hold on, let me unplug it. This part that plugs into the wall does not come with it. But those you can buy pretty much any, electronic place or on Amazon. But if you have a smartphone, that's all you need. You just need something to plug the USB end into, okay? Plug it back in. And it's really bright. The only thing I don't like about this is that it's very sensitive, and even through your cloth, if you just touch this with your hand, it will turn off. Of course it's not going to do it now, but it's not that big a deal. Oh, I moved my pattern. Hold on one second. Honest to Pete. Here it is. So when you, let me turn this off. When you purchase a pattern from me, you get a paper pattern that you use to trace. Honest to Pete, I cannot find just a regular roll of Scotch tape. I know I have some. Okay, so what you want to do is lay your weaver's cloth down. Take your paper pattern face down. If it's a large piece, you're going to want to center it, okay? But like I said, since, I'm going to turn this on, maybe that will help. But since this is a small piece, why not try to get several of these on one piece of weaver's cloth? Also, make sure you don't get it too close, because remember, you are going to be stapling this to your gripper or to your stretcher bars, or you may be using it in a hoop. You have to have enough material left for that hoop to grab onto. So I'm going to say bring it in 2.5 to 3 inches. And then tape. Oh, here's my Scotch tape. Duh. Right here on the table. Right where I left it, you know? How many of you do that? My husband always says, where'd my keys go? Where'd my phone go? I'm like, honey, they don't have legs. They didn't go anywhere. You mean, where did you leave it? He just rolls his eyes at me. And since I can't tape that side, I can flip it over and tape it. Like I said, if you're doing a big design, make sure you center it and make sure that it's straight. Now, I like to use a triangle. If you don't have a triangle, I suggest you purchase one because they're super cheap and it will just save you a lot of headache. And I would also get something, a bag of some sort, a project bag or something, and keep all of your punch needle supplies for tracing all together, because I'm constantly looking for my triangle. I have one at the house that I can never find. The one at the studio pops up here and there. Here's another tip. If you can't find your triangle or you don't have one, it's not like you can't start your project. What you do is you get an envelope. I mean, you can use a host of different things. Oh, here's for instance, this laminated cover from one of my catalogs. So I can line that up and trace, and then line it up here and trace. But the thing I don't like about it is you can't see through this, where when you use the triangle, you can still see the entire project. So make sure you buy a clear triangle. I think they come in colors, and you really don't want that. Now, for tracing, turn this off again. People often ask me what kind of pen I use for tracing. I love these micron pens, but you don't need to get a micron pen. You can use a Sharpie fine tip. Matter of fact, let me go grab one. A fine tip Sharpie will work just as fine. And then as far as the Pigma micron, this is a 0.8 size. All right, so we're gonna turn this on. I'm gonna start out using the micron so that you can see the difference between the micron and the Sharpie. So as you can see, I lined that up right at the corner so I could just make one continuous line. Line it up again. This one has a lot of little lines. And one more here. Another good tip is if you don't know if your marker is going to actually be on the line, like when you put your, let me just show you. Zoom in more so you can see better. When I line this up, maybe I don't know where my pen mark's going to be. So what you can do is put your pen down, so that's your point, and then when your triangle touches it, you know that that's exactly going to draw right on the line, okay? So I'm going to switch over to the fine tip Sharpie marker, and hopefully it's a good one. Yep. So this is the fine tip Sharpie. Let me just make sure it's fine tip, because they might have an ultra fine. Nope, this is fine point. Okay, so I am just tracing. Hopefully you can see this. And it doesn't have to be perfect, guys, because that's the thing about Punchneedle, I think, that makes people nervous, is they want it to look exactly like what is on the color cover. And you know what? It's going to be yours. It's going to be uniquely yours, and if it's not exactly like the one on the cover, it's okay. You're still going to love it. So as you can see, tracing this does not take long at all. This is also the point where you may want to change something. You might say, oh, I don't want the cat in there. Don't trace the cat. Or you can say, I don't like cats. I want a dog in that scene. So you change it to a dog. So there you have it. It's all traced and ready to go. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention, which I'm sure you know by now, is that if you have words in the design, the words will be backwards, because remember, we're working from the back of the design when we are doing our punching. Therefore, the finished side will be, the words will be in the right direction. Okay, now all we have to do is get our stretcher frame. And put that right on here. And I will show you how to do that. All you need for that is a regular stapler. Let me just preface this by saying I would trace all of these on here that I wanted before stapling it. So if you wanted to fill this with this, or if you have another design that maybe will fit here and another design that will fit here, or a big design, you know, you can fill this weaver's cloth with as many designs that will fit on here before stapling it. But because of time, I don't want to do that right now. So I start in the centers. Oh, I wish I could see the whole thing. You can see my messy table. Get some of this out of the way. Okay. Now you can see the whole thing. So I'm not going to pull it really tight, but just pull it a little bit snug. And you may end up having to move some of these staples once you get this taut. Especially when you have a big design. It will be, if you have a big design that fills this whole area, you will be able to see if your borders aren't straight, you might have to take a staple out and reposition that staple. And that I will show at another time. Okay, so now I have all 4 sides done. Now I kind of go into the corners and pull. I'm not pulling, but I'm just kind of making them a little bit snug as to where I think they should go. Oh, I ran out of staples. Of course, of course. We are back in business. Okay, now you're going to fill in these areas with staples. Again, go into the center between these two staples. And again, like I said, let's say we have a line. Let's just show something real quick. Let's say our design, goes all the way to the edge. See that line I just drew? So as you pull, you're going to want to make sure that line stays. Okay, so for instance, see that line? Let's say I pull it and I staple it there. Well, look at the line. You know, it's distorted. It's not straight. So here, I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to put another line here. This is just an example to show you if you have a large design that fills your entire frame. I want to show you. Okay. Oh my gosh, my stomach's growling. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning and it is so rainy today. It looks like it's still midnight. Okay, I'm going to finish over here. So we're going to pull this, not pull it, but make sure that that line is straight. Okay, now we're going to go over here. I don't know really if you can see that line very well. Let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to pull. So we want this to be taut. Or like they say, drum tight. So I can see that this staple, this was my first staple I put in, there's a little dip in my line. All I have to do is pull that staple out and pull it. And as you're pulling on it, you put the staple in. So now you can see the line is straight. And I think we need a tighter grip on this corner. And it's good to have, if you have an extra pair of needle nose pliers, I say you keep that with all of your punch needle tracing supplies, because you may need it to pull your staples out as you go. I would use needle nose, but the first thing I could find is pliers. But yeah, have all your supplies together. I don't even know why I don't do that. I just taught myself a lesson. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to get a bag and all of my supplies for tracing my punch needle will be. So as you can see, now my line's straight, and I put in a ton of staples because I want my line to remain straight, okay? Now we come over here, and you can see this line looks nice and straight right now. Here, I'm going to do this other side first because that will give us a better idea. This is not hard. I mean, I'm not pushing that hard. Oh, and the other thing is, I know this question is going to come up. How many times can you staple around this before it doesn't hold the staples anymore because there's going to be a lot of holes in your wood? I've used the same one over and over and over, and there's a gazillion holes in there. The likelihood of you putting this in the same exact holes is very slim. Also, if you do run into that, let's say you've used it for 2 years and you run into that problem, flip it over. You have another 2 years in it, right? Another thing is you're stapling down here, then you staple more in the middle, and then you can staple more at the top. You know, there's endless times you can use this. Okay, again, I'm trying to go fast here so we don't take up too much of your time. Okay, we are done. So we are done stapling it to our frame, and as you can see, I mean, can you hear it? So this will not move as you work. And not to mention, as you work and you fill this with your threads, your embroidery floss, it's going to get tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's just going to be, this is even going to be more drum tight. Okay, so now basically I'm ready to punch. Another question that I get asked is, how do you remove the weaver's cloth once your project is finished? When your project is finished, you simply take the cloth, and I have never torn my cloth, so don't worry about that. I mean, I wouldn't take it and just rip it like that. You're gonna have an issue. I grab the cloth right where you're pulling the staple out. A lot of times they come right out. And I just make a little pile of them so I can throw them away. So just go along, pull them out. You are going to cut, you know, it leaves little holes. So what? You're going to cut that off. You're not going to use that anyways. You're either going to cut it off or you're going to be folding it under at the very least. So you're not going to see it. Okay, and then see that one didn't come out. Just grab your pliers, pull it out. And you just do that all the way around until your piece is free. I think that's it for tracing and getting started with your punch needle. The other thing, I guess I could show you the Morgan hoop, because I do have those. Okay, if you decide to use the Morgan hoop, I use this for most of my punch needle designing. I used the Morgan hoop. For this small little snowman, the 7-inch hoop is perfect. Oh my gosh, I haven't used one in so long, I have to really think about what I'm doing. So you're going to put your little guy in here. And as you can see, if you're using the Morgan hoop, it's a little bit close to the edge. So you just want to make sure you when you trace it on there, you're going to space it out right. So the part that has a little twisty on it, that goes on the top so that your embroidery is close to you. I kind of secure it a little bit. Okay, so I secure it just ever so slightly, and then I start pulling it to make sure that it is drum tight in there. And again, you see the lines, and you just want to make sure that your lines are straight, that you're not pulling one side too much. And then once you get it, again, drum tight, you just turn that until it won't turn anymore, and you're ready to punch. Okay? I do not have a gripper frame here to show you. That's probably something I'm going to invest in just because as a puncher, don't you think I should have all the things? But I would like to try it. I'm going to have some links below where you can buy the gripper frames. If I get one, it's going to be the lap one because I would like it to just sit up high in my lap. It's a frame similar to this, but it's smaller, and it has these little grippies, little metal tines that come out, and kind of like I think of it as a what are those little hedgehog? These little things, pokey things that come out. And your fabric will grab onto your fabric. So you put it on two sides, and then you can pull it. You know, you pull it on this side onto the gripper and pull it this way until it's taut in the center. It's basically all the same, and that's easy for you to figure out. So that's all I have for you as far as getting your image traced and how to get it on the frame and how to get it off the frame. And now we're going to go on to questions and answers. Well, guys, I went through all of the places I needed to write down all of the questions that have been asked about punch needle. And guess what, guys? I guess I left it at the house. So bear with me for a minute. I have my laptop here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, it's roasting. I'm roasting. I'm going to go through just basically what I did when I was up at the house, okay? So bear with me a second while I get myself together here. Okay, so Jeannie Pickens, she asked me the design that I was working on when I did my Punch With Me live videos. It's called My Neighborhood, and it's a large piece, but She wanted to know if that's a new pattern and when it would be released. Yes, that is a new pattern. It will be released in January. Crystal Gleck, she asked, where do you get the stretcher bars, please? I have my weaver's cloth and also one of your patterns, but no stretcher bars or frame. I'm going to have a link below to my Amazon shop where you can purchase those stretcher bars. But I went over that earlier. It's Masterpiece is the brand that I prefer. They're really well made, and you can get them on Amazon. Patty, Rocky Mountain Stitcher, she also asked about the stretcher bars. Donna Overfield, she asked, what are you punching into? I hear the needle hitting something. It was actually just the punch. It's this little pop sound that it makes as the needle goes through the weaver's cloth. Beth Ann Henry, she said she wondered if her 9-year-old granddaughter could easily learn this. Absolutely. My son was 9 years old and he learned how to do it. He wanted to sit with me and work with me, which was so precious. And I will insert a picture of a star punch needle that he did not complete because, you know, I think a couple of evenings of that he was like, okay, I'd rather go play with Hot Wheels or whatever. But so yes, I think he did a great job for his first time at 9 years old. All right, so that was Punch With Me live video number 1 questions. Let's go check out video number 2. Sharon Anderson, she asked, does the needle stick your leg? No. I mean, it can. Absolutely, it can. If you're using a hoop, if you're not using a lap hoop, remember, okay, so the Morgan hoop, the non-slip Morgan hoop. Oh, and by the way, I do want to mention this. With this hoop, it will loosen up on you and you're going to have to retighten it. And that's the main reason I got away from the hoop and went to those stretcher bars, because I just like to keep working and I just got so tired of re-stretching it. And also eventually these will strip out and they don't get quite as tight as when you first purchase them. But it is a great way to start, and if that's, you know, how you want to do it. But they have them where they have a hoop here and then they've got these legs and another hoop at the bottom so that you can set it in your lap and work and not worry about sticking yourself. But when I use my frame, when I'm holding it against my body or on my lap or however, but I have it tilted. So I'm punching with my right hand and I'm holding it and tilting it with my left hand. So it's not gonna, but for the tutorial I had it laying flat so you could see. Well, I just made sure that I spread my legs far enough apart that if I'm working in the center, it's not gonna stick my leg. But yeah, that is a concern. And when you first begin, you may end up doing that a couple times. I hope not, but just, you know, be aware, it's very sharp. How do you get the pattern on cloth? Deborah, Lindsay just asked that. And I've had several people email me and different things. So yes, I just went, that's why I did that tutorial. So that was all the questions from there. Okay. Let's see. Danielle Hamilton, she said, I'm so interested in this. I'd love to know, when you finish the punch needle, what do you do? What do you do in order to finish it? Do you put anything on the working side to finish it off? Do you just cut it out and sew it to something else? I am going to go over some finishing in another video because that's just, it's way more than I want to put in this one. But I also have a punch needle tutorial that will walk you through beginning to finishing. If you're interested in that, I will have a link below. It's $37, but you get 6 free downloadable PDF patterns, which more than covers the cost of the tutorial. And the reason I'm doing that is just because, or the reason I did that is because it's step by step from start to finish. And it's really the most practical way to learn something rather than me piecing these videos here and there. So I will go into some finishing later, Danielle, but you may be able to find some things on YouTube as well. Okay. Marilli, she asked, and I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Is there a video that explains what punch needle is and what we can do with it? Is it currently used for rugs or tablecloths? Sorry for such a basic question, but I'm trying to bring this craft closer to reality here in Brazil. If you can just let me know, and if it doesn't have I don't know, could you please give us an overview? Okay, I went ahead and looked up some information online, a little bit about the history. On the CTR website, she got some information from Charlotte Dudney, Sally Van Nuys, and Linda Rapaski. The history of Russian punch needle embroidery. One interesting thing about punch needle is its unique history. Here's the short version. Miniature punch needle embroidery has been around for a very long time. Ancient Egyptians were among the first to employ this technique by using the hollow bones of birds' wings as needles. The technique was used throughout Europe during the Middle Ages, often to elaborately decorate ecclesiastical clothing and panels. In modern times, it has been associated with embroidery work done by Russian immigrants belonging to a religious sect called the Old Believers. During the reign of Peter the Great in the 17th century, the Russian Orthodox Church was going through a period of change. A new leadership made reforms, mostly to worship rituals that some rejected. Those opposed to modernization split from the church. They were severely persecuted, first by the reforming leadership, then by the Tsars. These old believers were scattered into remote areas of Russia and around the world. Some settled in America. There are several clusters in the U.S., but the largest concentration of old believers in the United States is near Portland, Oregon. In some ways, they are like the Amish. They stay mostly to themselves and reject many things in modern culture. So as you can see, it started in Egypt, but a lot of Russians, when they scattered, that's how it got brought to America. And, you know, it started out as an embellishment for clothing. So I thought that was interesting. But now it's, you know, the craft has come back with a vengeance. And now it's more of a craft for decorating home decor and that kind of a thing. I also found on the source, it says free articles from articlesfactory.com. Let me just read you this. One of many interesting things about the history of punch needle is its origin. History researched at the University of Michigan Library takes us back to the 15th century when punch stitch, as it was called in the beginning, was used mainly for decorating religious vestments and by men who used it for punching rugs while on long sea voyages from port to port. I think this article is talking more about rug punching than punch needle embroidery. I think it's kind of a mix between the two, because if they say punching rugs, that is basically the same technique, but you're using linen or monk's cloth. Back in the day, they used burlap, but then you use a whole different needle and you use yarn instead. Okay, oh, here it says, it began as a yarn craft and remains a yarn craft for most punchers, though some yarns look more like embroidery floss in a finished design. Fine gauge acrylic lusters and polyester yarns are used extensively for punch needle stitchery and look very delicate when finished. These yarns are also easier to use without constant rethreading. Punch needle embroidery is often referred to as thread painting, since it can be used to depict scenes, not unlike an oil painting. This technique and its variants are known as punch embroidery, punch needle embroidery, Russian embroidery, and bunka. Although these terms are not the same, they do use the same tool, a punch needle. The basic concept is simple. You punch the yarn through a fabric with a hollow pencil-shaped needle, and it leaves tufted loops of yarn over top of the fabric. Punch needle is more closely related to hook rug than embroidery, but the application and the end product are better described as embroideries than rugs. Punch needle is a rapidly growing revival. It's quick, easy, and seems to be the latest needle craze. You can start a punch needle project in the afternoon and be finished with it by the evening. Take the next step by becoming a part of history, making a contribution to the history of punch needle. So there you go. That is some of the history of punch needle, which I find fascinating. Let's see. I think that was it. Oh, Patty Rocky Mountain Stitcher. She asked, are any of your charts pre-printed on the fabric? They used to be when I first started I used to make rubber stamps, had rubber stamps made for me, I should say, and we would stamp the image on each one. In the beginning, that was fine. But as the business grew, that was very labor intensive. It was very messy. There was ink all over. And to get that on there, you have to really press to make a good impression on the fabric, and it just got to be laborious. So then we went to using a screen printer in town. But that was a nightmare because my jobs were small and they did big screen printing projects for schools and local businesses and things. So I was always pushed on the back burner. So it would take me 3 weeks sometimes to get my things back. I can't run a business that way. Also, even though I supplied the files and the fabric for them, they upped after doing that for me for about a year, they upped their prices. They doubled the price. I think they just didn't want to do it anymore. And I thought, I'm going to look around at what other people are doing, other designers. And a lot of designers just supply the fabric, and some designers don't even supply the fabric. You have to get that on your own. So I made the transition to having the paper pattern, and it's just tracing, so it has not hurt my business at all. Thank you, Jesus. But if you happen to get one of my patterns that's pre-printed, it's an oldie but goodie, because I haven't been doing that for a few years now. Probably more like several years now. Okay, I have one more place to look for questions Okay, from Instagram, somebody asked me about a punch needle that I'm working on now, and it's a pumpkin, and it's a rather large one as well, but she asked me how many days of work I had into it. I do not track my hours as I'm working, so I cannot tell you. I would like to maybe start doing that just so that I can have a time reference for people so that they know how long a project will take. But that little snowman I just showed you, I could have him punched in 2 to 3 hours. So if you get a small project, you will be delighted at how fast it goes. And then Sheila Bly asked, what punch needle do I use? And I use the CTR, the green handled one. Let's see, any other questions? And if you refer back to my live videos here on my Flosstube channel, you will, I think it's the first live video I did. I show how to thread the CTR, I talk about the CTR, and then I also show in the second live video that I did, and I'm numbering them so that when I refer back, you can find them easily. But you can also go to those live videos and you can see a lot about how to do punch needle. Okay, Sharon Pace Shite via, she said, how do you mount the finished punch needle project to a piece of wood? Again, that is a finishing question, and that will be a whole separate video, but thank you for asking. Julie Hill Roughton, she asked me, is it better to use 3 or 6 strands? I always use 3 strands for all of my projects. However, if you want to use 6 strands, you need a different needle if you use the CTR. But if you get the Ultra Punch, you can use, it comes with 3 different needles, a small, medium, and large, and you can change it out to the large needle and use 6 strands. If you're doing a big project that doesn't have a lot of fine detail, using 6 strands is fine because it will go faster, but it needs to be a large project with not any intricate details. However, having said that, you could do, say, the background with 6 strands, and then if let's say it's a pumpkin, to do the pumpkin face, you might want to go change your needle out and put it and use just the 3 strands so you get more detail and it's a finer look. If you do use the CTR, they have a 3 strand, they have a 6 strand needle, but you'd have to buy that separately. And then Julie also asked, are you teaching any classes in Indiana? As of today, no, I am not. I will be teaching in the spring at Stitch in Time in Saginaw, Michigan, and I'm flirting with the idea of hosting my own punch needle workshops in my area, like Davison, maybe Grand Blanc. I even considered having a class in my studio once in a while. I don't know, I have to think about that. It would depend on the time of year, because when it's muddy and icky, I don't want all that tracked into my studio because we don't have, it's not paved down to my studio. But like, you know, sometime in the late spring or in the summertime, it would be fun, I think, to host a workshop here in my studio. So that is it for today. I can't think of anything else that would help you get started, but keep the questions coming and I can continue to answer them. I will probably answer them in my regular Flosstube videos, and it'll be like the last thing that I do towards the end, so that people that aren't interested in Punchneedle won't have to sit through that Q&A. So, but keep the questions coming. I love it, and I hope you find lots of time to punch today. All right, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.